At exactly the same moment across America, something happened that no one heard, no one saw, and no one felt coming. There was no explosion, no warning siren, no headline racing across a screen, just silence, the kind of silence that only arrives when the world you depend on suddenly stops breathing. In New York City, 8 million people were already awake. Subways were full. Coffee machines hissed behind counters. Phones vibrated in pockets. Screens glowed everywhere. In Los Angeles, the night was just ending, streets still humming with movement. In Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Seattle, life was unfolding exactly as it had the day before, and the day before that, America was alive. And then, in less than a second, it wasn't. Lights went out, not one by one, not neighborhood by neighborhood, but all at once. As if someone had reached down from the sky and flipped a single switch, the greatest technological nation on earth went dark. At first, no one understood what was happening. People stood frozen in place, staring at black screens and dead traffic lights, waiting for the familiar buzz of power returning. Elevators stopped mid-air. Trains locked in tunnels. Hospital corridors dimmed to emergency red, phones were lifted. No signal, apps were refreshed. Nothing loaded, voices rose. Confusion spread. This wasn't a blackout, this was something else. Far above the planet, 93 million miles away, the sun had unleashed a violent surge of energy, an invisible storm of charged particles racing toward Earth at unimaginable speed. It crossed the distance in hours, not days, slamming into the planet's magnetic shield with the force of a cosmic hammer, and America's electrical nervous system absorbed the blow, power grids overloaded. Transformers failed. Satellites blinked out. Communication networks collapsed under the strain. The digital scaffolding holding modern life together cracked all at once. To the average person on the ground, none of that was visible. All they knew was that the world they trusted had vanished. In Manhattan, a subway train lurched and stopped deep underground. Emergency lights flickered on, casting long shadows across faces suddenly aware of how far below the surface they were. No announcements came. No phones worked. Just breathing. And fear. In Los Angeles, an intersection turned into chaos as drivers tried to negotiate darkness with horns and hand gestures. Sirens echoed without direction. Helicopters lifted off, then quickly landed again, unable to communicate. In Texas, oil refineries went into emergency shutdown. In the Midwest, water treatment plants froze mid-cycle. In Silicon Valley, the servers that powered half the world went silent. America's confidence, built on speed, connectivity, and control, evaporated in minutes. Hospitals became islands of light. Backup generators roared to life, feeding emergency power into operating rooms and intensive care units. Surgeons kept working. Nurses kept moving. But everyone knew the truth: generators are not forever. At airports, departure boards went black. Flights were cancelled without explanation. Pilots already in the air received garbled instructions, then nothing at all. One by one, they diverted to Canada, Mexico, anywhere with functioning systems. The skies above the United States began to empty. By midday, the scale of the disaster became impossible to ignore. This was not regional. Not statewide. Not even national in the way Americans normally understand disaster. This was continental. No internet, no cell service, no GPS, no live news. For the first time in modern history, America could not talk to itself, and then came the night. When the sun fell below the horizon, the illusion finally shattered. Entire cities vanished into darkness so complete it felt unreal. The glowing outlines of skylines disappeared. Freeways dissolved into black corridors. Even the sound of civilization changed. No engines, no screens, no constant electric hum, just wind, footsteps, voices, and above it all, stars, stars that most Americans had never seen before, not like this. The Milky Way arched over suburbs and cities alike, revealed by the absence of artificial light. For a moment it was beautiful, then the fear returned. Candles appeared in windows. Flashlights flickered through apartment halls. Families gathered closer than they had in years, not out of choice, but necessity. Children asked questions. When will the lights come back? Can we call Grandma? Why is it so quiet? Parents searched for answers they didn't have. In grocery stores, doors stayed open until darkness made it impossible. Registers didn't work. Credit cards were useless. Some people left money on counters. Others didn't. Water disappeared first. Then canned food. Then batteries. Most people still believed this would pass quickly. They were wrong. As hours stretched on, the systems Americans relied on every day began to fail in ways few had ever imagined. Water pressure dropped in major cities. Fuel pumps stopped working. ATMs were dead. Refrigeration shut down in warehouses and homes. The just-in-time economy, designed for efficiency, not resilience, began to unravel. In rural towns, the darkness felt heavier. Fewer lights. Greater distances. Farmers stared at idle equipment. Ranchers worried about water for livestock. Some pulled out generators, guarding fuel like gold. In cities, police departments switched to manual operations. Dispatch systems were down. Officers received instructions face to face. Radios crackled with static. Response times slowed, and still, no explanation. Washington, D.C. was operating blind. Inside government buildings, emergency lighting cast long shadows over rooms filled with decision-makers who suddenly had no dashboards, no live feeds, no digital intelligence. Information came by landline, then stopped. Runners were sent between offices. Handwritten notes returned to rooms built for screens. The question no one wanted to say out loud hung in the air. Is this an attack? Cyber warfare? EMP, solar storm? No one could be sure. And without certainty, every option felt dangerous. The military isolated critical systems. Nuclear facilities entered maximum safety protocols. Strategic assets were locked down. But even the most powerful institutions in the world were discovering an uncomfortable truth. They depended on electricity too. As the first night turned into early morning, exhaustion settled in. Phones died completely. The last digital connections faded. America slipped into a state it had not known for over a century. Life without instant communication. Day one ended not with answers, but with silence. When the sun rose again, it revealed a nation fundamentally changed. People stepped outside and looked around, expecting signs of recovery. Instead, they saw the same darkness, the same stillness, the same unanswered questions. Cars sat abandoned at intersections. Storefronts remained closed. Lines formed outside hospitals and police stations, places where people hoped someone, anyone, might know what was happening. Rumors spread faster than facts ever could. Some said the grid was permanently destroyed, some said foreign missiles had been launched, some said this was the beginning of something worse. Without information, imagination filled the void, yet amid the fear, something unexpected began to emerge. Neighbors knocked on doors, strangers shared food, communities formed where none had existed before. People talked. Really talked. Without screens. Without distractions. They told stories. They checked on the elderly. They organized patrols. They listened. In the darkness, America was forced to remember something it had nearly forgotten: how to be human without machines. But the second day would test that humanity harder than the first, because as supplies dwindled, as exhaustion deepened, and as uncertainty stretched on, the question was no longer when the lights would return, it was whether America would recognize itself when they did. By the middle of the second day, America was no longer waiting, it was adapting. The shock had worn off. The disbelief had faded. What remained was a quiet, grinding realization settling into millions of minds at the same time: no one was coming to fix this quickly. Whatever had happened was bigger than a storm, bigger than a blackout, bigger than anything most people had ever experienced, and survival, even for just one more day, would depend on people themselves. In neighborhoods across the country, handwritten signs appeared on doors and fences. Water here. Medical supplies available. Check on elderly residents. People who had lived side by side for years without exchanging names now shared food, firewood, and information. Churches opened their doors. Schools became shelters. Parking lots turned into gathering points where questions were asked out loud instead of typed into search bars. Without realizing it, America was relearning an older version of itself. In cities, emergency responders worked beyond exhaustion. Police officers stayed on duty long past their shifts. Firefighters navigated darkened streets guided only by memory. Nurses slept on hospital floors between patients. Doctors made decisions without digital scans, relying on experience and instinct. The machines were gone, the people remained. In rural towns, communities moved with quiet efficiency. Farmers pooled fuel. Mechanics repaired generators with scavenged parts. Families cooked together over open flames, watching the sky instead of screens. For some, it felt like stepping backward in time. For others, it felt like remembering something essential. Still, the strain was growing. Water systems were failing faster than expected. Refrigerated food spoiled. Medications ran low. In some cities, anger began to surface. A few stores were looted. A few streets turned dangerous. Fear, when left alone too long, always looks for a way out, and yet, it never spread as far as many had feared, because everywhere fear appeared, so did resistance to it. People stood in front of shops to protect them, not with weapons, but with presence. Communities organized night watches. Strangers intervened before violence escalated. Again and again, the worst instincts were met by better ones. This wasn't because Americans were suddenly perfect, it was because they finally understood what was at stake. By late afternoon on the second day, inside control rooms and power stations across the country, engineers were reaching the limits of human endurance. Many hadn't slept. Some hadn't eaten. They worked by flashlight, by paper schematics, by memory. Rebooting systems never designed to be restarted from zero. One wrong decision could destroy transformers permanently. One misstep could delay recovery for weeks. But slowly, painfully, systems began to respond. A meter twitched, a frequency stabilized, a transformer hummed instead of screamed. In one small town, a single streetlight flickered on, people gathered beneath it as if it were a campfire. Then another town. Another grid. Another state. The return of power did not arrive like a wave, it came like dawn, piece by piece. Block by block. City by city, as darkness retreated, cheers echoed through streets. Some people laughed. Some cried. Some simply sat down, overwhelmed. Phones buzzed back to life all at once, lighting up faces with missed messages, warnings, and headlines trying to explain what words still couldn't fully capture. 2 days, just 48 hours, and yet, nothing felt the same. When full power finally returned, America did not snap back to normal. It paused. For the first time in decades, the nation collectively exhaled, and looked at itself. Experts would later explain the science. Solar activity. Magnetic fields. Grid vulnerability. Infrastructure aging faster than it was being protected. Reports would be written. Hearings would be held. Budgets debated, but the most important lessons weren't found in documents, they were found in memory. People remembered how quiet the world had become. How fragile modern life truly was. How quickly comfort vanished when electricity did. How dependent everything, from food to water to medicine to safety, was on systems most had never thought about. And they remembered something else. They remembered how, when the screens went dark, people looked at each other again, they talked, they helped, they showed up. For 2 days, America was stripped down to its essentials. No filters. No algorithms. No distractions. Just human beings facing uncertainty together, and what emerged was not collapse, it was clarity. The darkness revealed vulnerabilities, but it also revealed strength. It showed that resilience is not stored in power lines or data centers. It lives in communities. In preparation. In empathy. In responsibility. It reminded a nation built on innovation that technology is a tool, not a crutch. That progress without resilience is fragile. And that no system, no matter how advanced, can replace human connection. The question was never whether the lights would come back on, they always do. The real question was what America would do with the memory of those 2 days, whether it would invest not just in stronger grids, but stronger communities, whether it would value preparedness as much as convenience. Whether it would remember that unity is not something invented during crisis, it's something revealed by it, because darkness doesn't create character, it exposes it, and for 2 unforgettable days, when the lights went out across America, the nation saw itself clearly, not perfect, not invincible, but capable. Capable of endurance, capable of compassion, capable of standing together when certainty disappears, and that is the light no blackout can ever take away.